Welcome to the first installment of Texas Cafe Classics. Now, this is going to be one of these things where the haters are going to say, Rip, you never been in a cafe. Shut up. You're pink. You're fat. All that stuff. But really, I have been in a cafe. I grew up in a cafe. My dad in Wichita Falls, Texas, owned a little cafe called Floral Heights Cafe. And it was in operation from 1954 until I believe 87. I believe is when he sold it in 1987. So I grew up in the cafe business. I worked in a cafe when I was a kid, washed dishes, cooked, did all kinds of interesting things, and learned how to cook an interesting type of food that we call Texas Cafe Classic food. Now, Texas Cafe food is an interesting type of deal. An old Texas Cafe, and there were lots of them. There's still one in Marble Falls called the Bluebonnet Cafe that is still in business, operating similar to what Daddy did back in the 60s and 70s. And a Texas Cafe would have a variety of meats and vegetables. So every day was another featured entree. Monday was chicken and dumplings. Tuesday was sirloin tips. Wednesday was fried chicken. Thursday was something else like meatloaf or whatever he cooked up, but it was the same kind of a deal. He made one thing for that day. Friday was some kind of fish, either catfish or salmon patties. And Saturday was fried chicken again. Now, available all the time on the menu were staples like chicken fried steak, hamburger steak, ham steak, roast beef, stuff like that he had prepared every day. But the rotators were these other things I'd previously mentioned. And it was a different type of food because everything was prepared in advance. All the vegetables, the creamed corn and the mashed potatoes and the green beans and everything were on the steam table. And the steam table is the thing that keeps things hot while you're serving from 11 to 1 through the lunch run. And so there was a variety of vegetables available on the steam table. An order would come in. Waitress would take an order out in the front. She'd come back in. She'd hang it on the wire. And Daddy would look at the order and start messing with it. And there'd be 8 or 10 orders at any one time in the lunch run that he's got to fill. And he's already got everything in front of him ready to do. And it doesn't take long to get this food out of the kitchen. It's hot. It's on the steam table. The chicken fried steak was already ready. He would make up 5 or 6 of those at a time. And then if we sold them all, he'd get busy making some more. Hamburger steaks were cooked to order. They didn't take long at all. He had a platter of hamburger meat in the refrigerator, and he would get an order for hamburger steak, and he would take a piece of hamburger meat with his hand, put some breadcrumbs on it, put some onions in it, and throw it on the griddle. The griddle was the primary cooking tool in the cafe. It's a great big cast iron hot sheet of metal, and he had like 3 or 4 burners under this thing, and it takes a while to heat it up, takes a while to cool it down. So, but the fry surface was this griddle, and it was an extremely useful tool. We're going to use a big cast iron pan today for our little demonstration, but a griddle would be the preferred way to do this. You can cook everything on a griddle, from eggs to hamburger steak, chicken fried steak, ham steak, hamburgers, cheeseburgers, that sort of thing. It's the primary tool in a Texas cafe is the griddle. And we've got plans to go through the recipes for all of these things to show you, because I remember it pretty well. What I don't remember, my sister remembers and my nephew remembers. We all worked down there. And we're going to show you exactly what this type of food was like and how real good it was. Now, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently today. Today, we're going to do chicken fried steak. I'm going to show you how these are made. And you have to remember that in a commercial kitchen, the object is to get the order out. You get an order in, you don't want to keep the customer waiting more than 4 or 5 minutes for his lunch because he's on a lunch break and he's got to go. So Daddy didn't have the luxury of making everything come out of the kitchen the way he would eat them himself. So there were shortcuts he took. For example, on the chicken fried steak batter, I'm going to use eggs and half. He used eggs and milk because milk was cheaper, and he was very concerned about this. Daddy was cheap. Okay, this is why the cafe made money, because Daddy was cheap. Daddy made his own bread. He made all of his own bread. He tried making his hamburger buns, but it was too much trouble, so he'd buy the hamburger buns. But everything else in the kitchen, he made from scratch. Pies, he made the best meringue pies you've ever seen. And all the stuff that he ground his own hamburger meat. He made his own sausage. He did everything but make his own bacon. He bought the bacon, but he bitched about it. So you got to understand the economics of running a kitchen like that actually worked in the customer's favor, because he made everything fresh, and fresh is good. But fresh is also cheaper. I'm thinking about trying to figure out how to make those rolls, but nobody can remember the recipe, and I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But I do remember a couple of things, and we're going to talk about all of these rotating recipes. We're going to make chicken fried steak today. I'm going to show you how hamburger steak is made. In another episode, we're going to make sirloin tips. Oh, those are so good. Oh my God. Sirloin tips on mashed potatoes. You can't understand how good that is. Especially with that fresh bread. Oh shit. Anyway, I remember it so clearly, and it's just so damn good that I thought that I would show you guys exactly what to do. So let's get started. Chicken fried steak is a very interesting thing. It's a staple of pretty much every restaurant in North America at this point. Everybody makes a chicken fried steak. And all of them make the shit wrong. Okay? Chicken fried steak is not deep fried. Chicken fried steak is cooked on a griddle. There's one place in Wichita Falls where you can get a properly made chicken fried steak right now, and that's it. Everybody else pulls them out of the freezer and puts them in the fry-o-lator and then hands them out to you. Sometimes the meat is hamburger meat that's breaded. And if it's deep fried, it's got a different look to it. It's all curled up and the batter's too thick, and it's a completely different product than what I'm going to show you how to make. And this is really pretty damn easy. I have here in my hands a tenderized beef cutlet. All right? And I want you to look at this. This is a piece of fairly lean, clean beef that has been run through what is called a cutlet machine. A cutlet machine is a thing that has 3 rollers, and the rollers are made out of blades, little short blades that stick up off of the axis of the roller. And the things mesh together. So you put a piece of steak that was probably twice this thick to begin with. So it's a small piece of meat. It's a way to stretch the portion. It's a small piece of meat. You put it through the cutlet machine, and the cutlet machine rolls it out into a tenderized, so the knives come in through and cut the thing up into these little portions. All right. Now this is a piece of beef cutlet, and the cutlet is the general term for what this is called. But let me tell you a little secret. At the Floral Heights Cafe, chicken fried steak was made out of pork. It was made out of pig meat. Pork. Wasn't kosher. But there weren't any Jewish people in Wichita Falls anyway at the time, so no one was offended. All right? Pork is the key to the flavor of the Floral Heights Cafe chicken fried steak, as you're going to see, because I'm going to make one of each. I'm going to make some beef chicken fried steaks, and I'm going to make some pork chicken fried steaks. And now, I'm going to show you what we made what I'm going to make the chicken fried steak out of. This is what they're calling at the store a boneless pork ribeye chop. All right? It's boneless because I'm going to tenderize it. And I don't want the bone in there. All right? This thing is what I found at the store last night and what I wanted to buy at the store. So look at this. See this? This is the way the chop starts off. All right? Now, what I wanted to buy at the store that they didn't have was a pork loin. The big, fat pork loin roast that comes off of the back of the hog. It's cheap. It's solid, lean, white pork. It's about like that in cross-sectional area, and I would slice it to make one of these little steaks out of. And if I were slicing it, I would make it thinner than that because it's going to be easier to tenderize into a cutlet, a thinner piece of steak. All right? But I didn't have that option. So, and you may not either. You may have to buy some kind of a prepared boneless chop like that and turn it into a cutlet yourself. And this little jewel right here is what you're going to use. This is a meat hammer. All right? This is also a meat hammer. This is overkill, okay? This one will work just fine, okay? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hammer this cutlet out. First thing I'm going to do, though, before I do that, is I'm going to put on my original Floral Heights Cafe apron that I wore when I was working at Floral Heights Cafe. And what I'm going to do this for is because it keeps the little gobbets of meat off my shirt, off my starting strength shirt. If I can see to tie the damn thing. I'm a little bigger now than I was then. Used to have some slack, right? No more slack, though. So now look. See this little jewel right here? See what he does? You take the coarse side of the meat hammer. You take out your frustrations. And I know you have frustrations. I have frustrations. We all have frustrations. It's 2020. We've got frustrations. Those of you in the far distant future watching this podcast as a rerun when the sun is a red giant out to the orbit of Jupiter may not remember 2020, but right now it's on our minds. Oh, yes. I'm accomplishing two things. I'm taking out my frustrations. You know who I'm hammering right here? You got any idea, Nick?
Kamala?
Anthony Fauci.
Fauci, yeah.
Anthony Fauci.
What about
That's so satisfying.
CNN?
CNN.
Fox News.
Fox News, for that matter. Traitorous pieces of shit. All right. And you'll now see what has happened to this thing I've turned into a cutlet. I have about doubled its surface area. I've put a lot of texture into the surface of the meat that's going to be important here in a minute, as you'll see. And I have made the thing thin so that it will cook fast. I don't want to leave this thing in the pan more than about 5 minutes. And I won't have to if I do everything correctly. So here in front of you right now, you see 2 cutlets, one beef, one pork. And now you know how to make a cutlet. This is cheap, so get one. And it will enable you to use any kind of little steak that you want to make into a cutlet to make chicken fried steak. Now I'm through with my apron. Did I get any little spatter on my
Yeah.
apron? See,
Yep.
I didn't want that on my shirt. I mean, the price of indulging yourself in making Fauci into a cutlet it's, requires some washing up. But the apron, right? So now I'm going to season these things. And this is the damnedest part of this thing. This stuff is so goddamn good, you're not going to believe how good it is. But the only thing I season it with is salt and pepper. That's it. No garlic powder, no nothing. Just salt each side and pepper each side. Thoroughly. And what I'll do, I like a lot of pepper on my chicken fry, so I'm going to put it like that. And then I'm going to pat that into the surface, flip it over, and do it again. And it's just so simple. And the simplicity is one of the wonderful things about this. It's just like starting strength. Why gild the lily? Right? Pointless. So now we've got our seasoning here. I got to pepper this. I forgot to pepper the other side. Now that we've got our seasoning, and we're going to let that sit there for just a little bit. And now I'm going to make up the batter. All right? So what I'm going to do, here's the general scheme. All right? I'm going to season my cutlets, and I'm going to roll them in flour, and then I'm going to dip the floured cutlet in the batter, and I'm going to put them back in the flour. So I've got flour, batter, flour. And it's going to make a little coating on the steak that will get brown in the skillet. But here's how you make the batter. Once again, this is very simple. Eggs. And I'm going to use 3 because I've got a lot of people to feed here today. All right, you got Carmen, you got Rusty, you got Bree, you got Nick. Freeloaders. All of them, freeloaders. But I told them to come out and I'd feed them. So now I'm going to mash my eggs up, whip them with a fork, until they're nice and mixed up. And then what I'm going to do is take the cream. I have this cream left over from my tea this morning. Yes, I drink tea in the morning. Coffee's for later in the day. I'm civilized. I drink tea for breakfast. Bad habit I picked up in Scotland. And I am going to make this batter out of half and half an egg. And this is what it looks like when you're done mixing it up. All right? Now, as I mentioned, Daddy cut corners because he was concerned about the economics and he didn't believe in doing things the hard way or the expensive way. Feed 'em, not fatten 'em, was his watchword. Right? Feed 'em, not fatten 'em. So he did kind of things the cheap way, but I got lots of money. You know how successful I've become. And I'm going to use half and half in my batter instead of milk. I think it works better. I think the fat in the half and half works better on the surface of the meat when you're making a fried patty out of it. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to dip this thing in this flour. And I make chicken fried steak all the time. And I've got a Tupperware container full of flour. I keep it in the deep freeze, and whenever I want to make a chicken fry, I'll pull this thing out, add some more flour to it, and do my steaks, and then I put the lid back on it, and I put it back in the deep freeze for the next time. Now, since I've already used this, it's always good, I think, to sift all the chunks of shit that accumulate from batter falling off of the steak into the flour box, and this time it's fairly clean. I didn't have much in there. So now I've got in front of me my steaks. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and get my pan ready. Now, you'll remember that I told you that at Floral Heights Cafe, we use the griddle to cook all this stuff. I don't have a griddle. Griddle is a big, expensive piece of equipment. My little bitty house out here just doesn't have room for a big commercial kitchen. Had I had a bigger place, I would have put a griddle in because I'd use it all the time. In lieu of a griddle, I've got a 15-inch cast iron pan, and it works pretty well. It really, really does work pretty well. And this is just a Lodge 15-inch cast iron pan. It's a little bigger than most people deal with. Most people use, what is that, a 10 or 11-inch, something like that. I've got one right over there someplace. But it's, as far as frying chicken fries and stuff like this, this is the most useful sized piece of cookware I own. I use it all the time for everything. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and turn this on, all right? And I'm going to make sure that nothing is stuck to the bottom of the pan. I'm scraping it with my spatula. The last time I used this was yesterday to cook a bunch of fried eggs. So it's fairly clean. I don't ever wash it. I just cook on it, turn it off, scrape it clean the next time I use it, and it's always ready to go. And this thing's essentially no stick, and it does an excellent job. More importantly, for what we're going to do today, it's big enough to where I have enough room to work under the steak to turn it. All right. Now I'm going to fry these steaks in a combination of butter and olive oil, and I'm going to use about, for all the steaks, and I'll have to add more oil to this as we go on. For our little 2 steaks we're going to demonstrate here, I'm going to use about this much butter. And then to that, I'm going to add some olive oil because I like the combination. I like the flavor of the combination. And the olive oil allows me to fry these steaks, olive oil, at a higher temperature than I can just with butter by themselves. Okay, so we're gonna scoot this around. It's gonna take a couple of minutes for this to get warm. Okay, during which time I'm gonna go back over here and finish breading my steaks. Okay, now I'm going to bread the pork cutlet. What I'm going to do is just stick this in the flour. All right. I'm going to mash the flour into the little surface area I've created on top of the steak, and the floured cutlet will look like this. Nice and white and completely uniformly covered with flour. Remember, the salt and the pepper is underneath the flour. You want to salt and pepper the bare meat before it's breaded. And then what I'm going to do is very carefully, to avoid destroying the kitchen, I'm going to just dip this down into the batter. Now the batter needs a second to wet the flour or it won't stick. You can't just wave the steak at the batter and have it actually stick. So when you get through with doing it correctly, it needs to look like this. So you can see that the whole surface of the steak is covered flour and batter, and then you just stick it back in the flour box. Just like that. Then I'm going to pull some flour up over the top of it. You cannot make chicken fries without making a mess, right? It's impossible to do. So once that is done, it's ready to go in the grease. Right? Now that I've got my hands dirty, I'm just going to take the steak and I'm going to drag some of the grease out into the pan under the steak. And I'm going to do the other one. Now we got this thing cooking. I'm going to turn the heat up on it a little bit. And I'm going to carefully watch these things, and I'm going to move this steak as little as I possibly can. All right, one of the problems people have with chicken fried steak is the breading falls off. And the reason the breading falls off is because you keep fucking with it while it's in the pan. Don't do that. Now I want you to look at this little jewel of a kitchen tool in my hand. This is a pigtail. This is the most useful device in the kitchen for handling meat. And I want you to look very carefully at why, because you can tell exactly why that is. Look what I can do with this. I've got surgical precision. And look what I'm doing with the steak now. I'm rotating it, I'm moving it otherwise. Because remember, I've got a round pan here, and the hot is in the middle. All right, now later on when the whole thing heats up uniformly, I don't have to worry about this. But right now, I've got to make sure that the heat's applied evenly to the steak, but I'm not going to turn this more than one time. And this is the trick to making sure that the breading stays on a pan-fried chicken fried steak. Now you'll notice on the beef cutlet, this is the beef, this is the pork. You'll notice I've got some beef juice coming through the top of the cutlet, cooking through from the heat on the other side. This usually indicates that the thing is ready to turn. And look at that perfect golden surface of this thing. This is the way the thing is supposed to look. Okay? The pork, being a little bit drier piece of meat, does not require you to see the juice coming through, but occasionally you will. I think this one needs another minute, 30 seconds anyway. Yeah, it's coming through. The juice is clearer, though, on a piece of pork than on a piece of beef. All right? Sneak a little peek at it under there. And you'll notice that I'm going to make sure that when I flip it, that it goes back onto the pan wet with grease. All right? And I'm just going to stand here the whole time. I'm real bad about forgetting what the hell's going on, so if I walk off, I'll burn the piss out of the thing. So I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to babysit these things. They don't take long to cook. If the cutlet is thin enough and the pan is hot enough, these don't take very long to cook. This is one of the reasons why they work so well in a cafe. You can make a whole batch of chicken fries in about 5 minutes and have food ready to serve very quickly. Here's another little trick. This is a bacon press. Sometimes the steak tends to draw up and bow. If I put that weight on it, it flattens it back out and makes sure that the whole surface of the bottom piece of the steak right now gets cooked and fried to the same consistency that the top did. Now this is about ready to come off. So let me have a plate, that platter right there, and this is interestingly enough, a Floral Heights Cafe platter. I don't use anything else. This is Mayor China and Buffalo China. There's 2 or 3 brands of good cafe china like that. And I just refuse to eat off of anything else. But I don't have to. And look. Look at this beautiful thing. I think I'm going to touch him up. on this side for just a second. Turn the heat back down. Oh, look at it. Pork, beef. Now, let's see which one tastes best, shall we? All right, who's first?
Carmen?
Garmin? Now, this is the pork chicken breast. This is really properly, I guess, called a schnitzel, since it's, you know, it's kind of what the Germans do, right? How is it?
Oh, God.
It's like, all right, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Hot.
And now, yeah, it is a little hot. Now, wait a minute. This is the beef. See, the meat is a slightly different color. The pork is obviously lighter in color than the beef. This is your standard recipe chicken fried steak made out of beef. Now, which one do you like best?
I've eaten a lot of chicken fried steaks, but I like the pork.
Everybody does. Everybody likes the pork better.
It has a better flavor.
It has a better flavor. The meat has a better texture. It just works better as a chicken fry than the beef does.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Bree?
Bree?
I don't want anyone to see me eat. It has to be put in a blender first and made into a paste.
Bree, shut up and come over here and take the bite. All right, Bree? Now this is the pork. You can use the fork if you want to.
It's good.
It's all right. It's all right, isn't it? I mean, it's okay, right?
It's okay.
It's all right. Here, this time take the fork. Good.
It's easier that way.
She's just,
That's what I did. It's a lot easier that way. Just taking it off the fork.
so which one's best?
I like the beef.
You like the beef better? I knew she was going to
Of
say
course she
that.
likes the beef better.
I knew she was going to say that. I don't know how I knew that, but I did know. Rusty,
Yes, sir.
behind the camera. Just eat the whole piece. Thought I cut it small enough. Now that's the beef. That's the beef. You use your fingers because you're little babies. That's why you use your fingers. Now this is the pork.
That beef is fucking fantastic, though.
Oh, you.
But pork rules.
Pork rules, I'm telling you. All right, Nick.
Back here.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta use a fork.
Well, you ought to
Which
use
one
the
is
fork.
this?
I don't want you to burn your fingers.
Which one's this?
That's
This.
beef.
It's all right.
It's all right. You know, you didn't make a turd. It'll make a turd. Here, now, here's the pork.
What the hell's wrong with you? Pork's way better.
The pork's way better.
Yeah.
Yes. This is what most people think.
Brie
The pork
tastes-
is way better.
Brie tastes a little fat, and then
It-
immediately.
In Bree's defense, Bree normally eats boiled chicken breasts, white rice,
Salt.
and salt, and that's all she consumes. But today, you get to see how this is actually done. Lone Star beer comes with a twist cap now. That's actually kind of disappointing. But with a chicken fried steak, it's real good. So, look at that. No, I don't drink out of a bottle. I'm not a 14-year-old kid. This is the beef. Beef's okay. This is the pork. I'm telling you. This is excellent. It's quite a treat. And this is why people in Wichita Falls still remember the Floral Heights Cafe. This is the way to make a chicken fried steak. Deep fried is bullshit. Pan fried or on the griddle is how a chicken fried steak is made. Try it at home. I don't think it's that much trouble. And you will find rewards in your effort. It doesn't take very long to cook this, as you saw. It's not a big, long, involved process. Doesn't require a bunch of French cooking skills or spices or anything like that. Give it a shot. Chicken fried steak. Thanks for watching. Texas Cafe Classics. We'll be back with another recipe soon. Thanks.
Oh, that sounds good.